Hello and welcome to this Affinity Photo tutorial, and this is Beginner's Guide Part 5. Now in this tutorial I want to look at using filters. Now I have sort of touched lightly on them in the earlier Beginner's Guides, but I want to sort of concentrate more on them in this video. Now running along the top here we have the menus, and one of those menus is filters. And when you click on that you have these options here, and from the first section of filters you have a sort of sub menu, and you have filters within that sub menu. So you have blur filters, sharpen filters, distort, noise, detect, color, and the new one which is Astro photography. Now I freely admit I don't do astrophotography, I know very little about it, so I won't sort of delve too much into that one. And there are a few sort of specialized filters below this for like frequency separation, lighting, shadows and highlights, and haze removals. Now in the early connotations of Affinity Photo, the filters were all destructive, and by that I mean things like destructive editing. I have mentioned this before, but I'll go over it again. The destructive editing was that once you'd made the edit, because it affects the image or the layer that you are on, once you made that edit you couldn't go back and tinker with it. You were sort of stuck with it, and if you got it wrong you would have to sort of do the undo, which is sort of, you can do undo, which is Control and Z on a PC, and I think Command and Z on a Mac, or you would have to delete sort of layers that you may have added above that edit, and you want to go back to it. So what Serif did was they made some, not all, of the filters into what they call live filters, and you can access the live filters from the layers panel, and this icon down here, which looks like a sort of what do you call it, an hourglass icon. So if you click on that it will open a menu that is quite long here. Sorry for that abrupt interruption there. That intro is the same as in part 5A of the Beginner's Guide. That's just because I recorded this section about looking at the filters in one go, as I was going to make it just one video, but it ended up being like over an hour long, which I thought was probably a bit excessive. So I've split the video in half, and I'm going to, part 5A is about the non-destructive editing live filters, and this part, which is part 5B, we'll be looking at the filters in the filters menu that aren't live filters, so they are destructive editing. So it's quite abrupt, the sort of intersections. I'm very sorry about that, but thank you for watching. So now I want to have a quick look at some of the destructive filters. So one, I know, like we said, average is not a live filter. If I click on this, it will give you an average of all the colours that were in that picture, and then what you could do is change the blend mode. So if you've got the same image in the layer below, you can sort of highlight or accentuate the colours from the image that was at the top and has now been made into an average of all the colours that were in that particular picture. So let me turn that off and we'll come to this one. Because this is destructive, I can't sort of delete, and I'm not going to keep going back. What was the other one that was? I think it was zoom blur was one where, because this is like from the center point, it zooms out from that center point, and I'm guessing you can click, yeah, it's pretty much like the other one where you can click. It's a bit like motion blur, but it's sort of coming from a particular area. So let me just click apply on that one, and I'll turn that off, and we'll click on this one. Other destructive ones, I'll distort. There was a few extra distort ones. The polar to rectangle was can be a pretty good filter, but again, this is destructive, and this will sort of, I can't explain how it sort of makes one of those world pictures, depending on your particular picture, but it can sort of make all the pixels go around in a circle, so it looks like you have a world image. I can't remember how to explain this, but it will just do what it does. You cannot sort of have any other effect than what you get when you try it. I'm going to press Ctrl and Z, and because I think it's, yeah, because that was polar to rectangle. You can go the other way, rectangular to polar. Oh, that was the effect I thought it would get, like this sort of round world image. So that is an option, be it rectangular to polar or polar to rectangular. Let me just delete that one. And where we go from here, so a lot of these you will sort of need to have a play around with and see what you get. Mirror can be quite good, because like it gives you a mirror image, and at the moment we have like one mirror, but you can sort of increase this, say that's like 4 mirrors, and you can also change the angles of those mirrors, so you can get some really good, like this has got 11 mirrors, and I've changed the angles, and you've got this pretty good design that you could use for a background just from using that image. So if I go on to this split zone, yeah, that was the original image, and that is what this mirror filter has done. But like I said, once you click apply, apart from using Ctrl and Z, what have you, to undo, you cannot sort of go back and sort of re-edit other than reapplying the filter. And let's try this. Which one was it? It was oh, it's on the distort menu. If we go back to mirror, you could then sort of use the mirror image on that image that you'd already used it on. I'll turn that off, and I'll just make another couple of those, and we'll try this one. Oops. And again, a lot of these you sort of really need to try for yourself, but we got the equation one where you can use, again, you sort of need to know a bit about the maths of what's going on here. I'm not fully adversed as to what maths is needed, so I'm just going to cancel on that one. And then we come to the detect. Now the detect edges is quite good if you want to make a sort of drawing of a particular image. So if we go with detect edges, it will make this sort of black and white negative type image. If you then invert that, you get this sort of almost drawing effect of your image here. And sometimes it depends on your image, but it can look quite good, and other times it doesn't. But you can also change the blend mode of this, and if you've got the same image below, you can sort of like this is color dodge, and it starts to make it look like a colored drawing rather than just a black and white, and you get sort of hard light. See, again, that one's looks like a different type of drawing. So the detect edges filter can be quite good if you want to sort of make a drawing type effect. Let me turn that off and we'll look at this next filter. Where are we on? So we're on colors next. Now the auto levels, contrast, color, white balance, they are options that are already available up here and these four icons here, and it will just be the program taking its sort of best guess at altering the contrast of an image or altering the colors. And let's click on auto contrast, and that has just sort of made that brighter. But like I said, because it is a filter and a destructive filter, the only way to sort of get out of what that looks like is to press Control and Z or Command and Z, or coming up to edit and using the undo option. So then we have, so we've got the vignette, which we know about, chromic abrasion. Now this is when you, like sometimes in your pictures, I don't know the science behind why it happens, but sometimes you will get a sort of a green or a sort of purpley fringing around an image, and the chromic abrasion filter can be helpful in removing that. I'm not 100% certain what the remove white or black matte is, so I don't know. Same goes for multiply by alpha or divide by alpha. I don't know what that is either. Now the erase white paper one is a pretty good one. Let me just start a new document for a second. I forgot where it was then. Start a new document, and what I will do is I will make a layer like that, and I will add a bit of text. So I'm just going to put a big A there, and let me merge visible, so I can now delete that and delete that. So this layer is now, you know, a flattened image of those two previous layers. So this is now all on one layer, and I can't sort of access this sort of A if I wanted to, but I mean, you have to imagine this is sort of some drawing, but you want to sort of cut out that A or whatever the drawing is or picture is. But if it has a white background, you can use the filter and colors and erase white paper, and it will give you just the areas that aren't white. So again, this is very good for cutting out objects that have a white background. So that is a very good filter to know about. So let's come down to the next one. I don't know a lot about what these dither ones do. I know this will make this black and white, but you have no control over how much it has an effect, and it can work on some things and not on others. It's a total guesswork. So I'll turn that off. Come to the next one. So this is where working non-destructively is not working destructively is not good, because you don't always have any control over what the filter is going to do. And solarize is, it sort of turns this into, depending on your image, but it can turn it into sort of a infrared type image. Hasn't worked so well on this particular image. I'll press Ctrl and Z to undo that. I think I missed one out there, which was emboss. Now you just need to move the slider to get this sort of embossed look. Again, you can change the direction of the embossing, make it black and white if you click on monochrome, and get an effect. Again, I can't see that you would use this very often, so I'm going to cancel that. And I think it's pretty much near the end of the destructive filters. Now the Astro photography one, now obviously I have this sort of starry type image, but it's not a true Astro photography, but doesn't mean we can't give it a go. So if I alter just some of these and see what happens. Yeah, so you are sort of having a, an effect that you may or may not like. Like I said, I don't do astrophotography, so I'm not really 100% certain how or what the best settings would be, but I mean, if you end up liking the end result, it doesn't really matter. I'm guessing this circle here, if I click somewhere, you can alter from that image, that point, and give yourself a very different effect. So that could be quite good. You've got a sort of green on this side and purple on that side. So we just click apply on that one. So that's quite a neat image. I mean, it may not be to everybody's taste, but I think that's quite good actually. Alright, so let's come to this next one. So I think we're only coming to like the specialized one. Now, frequency separation, there are plenty of videos out there about frequency separation, and this is good for, it's not just good for portraits, but it is mainly used on portrait photography, where you make alterations to either the high frequency or the low frequency of an image, and you can remove things like spots and pimples and scars and freckles and things like that from a portrait image and make it sort of look pretty seamless. So I'd advise looking at videos on frequency separation. Apply image is a filter I've never understood. I click on this, it's got load source file, or use current layer as source file, and then it looks like, again, you've got equations and mathematics and what have you, and it's something I've never really used, so I'll cancel that. And that's pretty much it, I think, as far as the filters go. The only other thing that's added to the filters menu is plugins. Now, plugins are filters, but they are sort of programs in their own right. The most famous of these is the Nick collection. Used to originally be made by Google, but it is now made by somebody else, or owned by somebody else, and they've sort of updated it. You have to sort of install these somewhere on your computer, and then from the edit menu, preference, and then you go to Photoshop plugins, because they were all pretty much designed for Photoshop, not any other program. You can direct Affinity Photo to where they are installed. Now, not all Photoshop plugins will work with Affinity Photo. Sometimes it can be a bit hit and miss. But I mean, if I try, which one should I try? Let's try. Oh, Topaz. See, I mean, you got Topaz, Sharpen, and Denoise, which are they are sort of standalone programs, but they do also work as plugins. And the same goes for Topaz Studio 2. So if I click on that, you just have to wait for that to sort of load into Affinity Photo. Now, pretty much all the plugins that are available you do sort of have to pay for on top of Affinity Photo price. There did used to be a few free ones around, but they don't work so well, mainly because they were for 8 bits, and Affinity Photo is now, I think, 16-bit or whatever. But you basically have similar tools, because you've got filters here. So let's say film grain, you can sort of basically a bit like adding noise to your image, and once you've made any and all alterations, you should be able to click on accept, and that will return the image back to Affinity Photo with whatever changes you've made using that particular plugin. But like I said, the Nik Collection is probably the most famous plugin, and in my mind is, especially if you want to do black and white conversions, because the Silver something Pro, I can't remember, where we go here, yeah, Silver Effects Pro, when you click on that later, you have all these options down the side here, and you can try different ones to see which one you like, and you can make alterations as well with the things on the left, on the right I should say. So if you're happy with that one, for example, you click OK, it will return it back to Affinity Photo, and it has made those changes for you. But again, that is destructive, because you sort of can't alter it other than deleting it and sort of trying again. So I think that just about rounds up this very long look at filters. So the filters that are in the filters menu, they are all sort of destructive filters, but there are more available. The filters that are available from this icon down here are all non-destructive, but there are less of them. They just sort of got the main options covered. I would imagine, 99% of the time the live filter list will be all you need, except for maybe the plugins option. So that is the end of my look at the filters, be it the menu versions or the live versions. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.